Hello there, Internet people, and welcome to episode 90 of Nintendo Noise, Flip Screen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host this week, Max Wright, joined as always by my dear friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
Do you know what, Max? I'm hyped up. Tears of the Kingdom's out tomorrow, as of the time we're recording. Yep. You'll probably be out already if you're listening to this on Friday when it comes out. And I can't wait. I had my tracking code come through from Currys in the UK. Yeah. Very excited.
I've been checking, even though it's all day has said that it's coming at 3 p.m. tomorrow. I've been checking it just every now and again, just in case. They might be
you know what I've done before? Like, I've got it for a deal at like Currys, because I got it for £45 at Currys in the UK, so I can resist. What I've done before is I've gone out, I've bought a copy somewhere else, and then when my cheap copy comes from Currys, I take the expensive copy back to like Game or something. So then I can like play it immediately if I want to.
That's a good idea. Sadly, I've got work tomorrow, so I won't get a chance to do that.
I technically have work tomorrow, but
as soon as that game
arrives, I'm not doing anything. I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom.
Yep. I'm going to try and get home as soon as I can and give up my real life, like I did in 2017, and just live in Hyrule. Being Link, silent, which isn't like me, but very skinny, also not like me. Blonde, not like me, but I'm very looking forward to it. I'm very excited.
Do you have a tribal tattoo like the new Link?
I don't have any tattoos. My body's a temple.
Wow. What about a Master Sword? Have you got one of those?
Oh, I can't show that. I can't show that on the podcast. That's very private. See, what isn't private though now, as of 1 p.m. today, is the internet and the critics' opinions and thoughts on Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, because reviews are out as of today. I was very excited to see these come out, and I was quite, I don't know about you, and I know that we'd sort of spoken about this a little bit beforehand, but I was a little bit nervous that there was going to be like some controversy, or we were going to see like, oh, the performance is really bad, or like, oh, you know, the similar when we had Bayonetta 3 come out, Pokemon come out, they were like, we need a new Switch. But luckily, the reviews have been pretty good across the board. It's got a 96 on Metacritic, a 97 on OpenCritic. I think Metacritic is one score below Breath of the Wild, but on OpenCritic, they're currently the highest rated game ever.
Wow.
However, I think OpenCritic is only from when OpenCritic started. It's not like Metacritic, which has like every game ever on there. You know, it doesn't have Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters on there to knock Zelda off the top
spot. 1 game. Yeah.
Doesn't have Tetris. Yeah, exactly. So today, to open up the show, we're going to sort of go through some of the reviews, some of the key points that have been sort of pointed out by some of the bigger outlets. We're going to talk about maybe a couple of the more controversial ones. I say a couple. There's one.
Is it the Gfinity one that's got at 60?
It is. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to sort of generally talk about how we feel about the game to start us off. So let's open up with the main takeaways that I've sort of seen from looking through these reviews to put this together. It seems to just sort of take what Breath of the Wild achieved and improves on it, you know, in a lot of ways. Adds loads of new abilities, loads of new ways to be creative, huge new areas of the map. The map's like doubled in size now. The bits of Hyrule that are the same, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to give any big details, don't worry. Sort of the new area, the sort of revisiting the old areas of the game feels fresh. Performance isn't too bad across the board. There are some hiccups. I think a few of the reviews did say like can hit 20 FPS. During some tough times. It seems to be performing exactly like
from what I've read, so from the emulation side of things, so from what people who have played on emulators have told me, it's locked to 20 FPS, like the game actually locks it to 20 FPS in places.
Oh, really? Because there's too much for them to do.
And there's a mod to unlock the frame rate and get it to 30 or 60 FPS.
Interesting.
But I think for the most part, it targets 30 across the board.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think we were expecting anything magic from it, but I was wondering if that being made specifically for the Switch would help it, but I guess it's based on Breath of the Wild. And
people seem to think it looks better, though. Like, it does look like a marked improvement over the Wii U version. Because looking at the previews we saw either last week or the week before, we had like the hour hands-on videos that people had. It looked like a graphical improvement, at least from my perspective. I don't know what you thought about it.
No, I agree. I think like a lot of when you're in the sky, the huge draw distance really helps. I think the starting area that I've sort of seen some clips of in the reviews looks great. Like the architecture looks great, and like it looks quite crisp. I'm interested in how that translates into handheld mode, because I know that handheld mode, it can dip to sort of sub HD or
I'm
sub
fine with that,
720p, sub
honestly.
native. Yeah, I'm the same, but I'm assuming it looks pretty good.
How do you
Anyway,
think you're going to play it? Do you think you're going to play mainly handheld or mainly docked?
I'll just 50-50. When I'm at home, I'll play in handheld. If I'm at work or I'm at my girlfriend's house or sort of away for the weekend, I'll play in handheld. I doubt there's going to be much time where I'm at home in my room with my big TV off playing in handheld mode. That just doesn't really appeal to me that much, even with that lovely screen. But I'm going to try and play with the Pro Controller as much as humanly
Yeah,
possible, I
I love
think.
that Pro controller. I remember buying my Switch in 2017, trying out that stupid little Joy-Con grip for about 10 minutes, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
who's using this? This sucks. And then the next day I went and bought a Pro controller, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is exactly how Breath of the Wild should be played with a Pro controller. And I was like, this feels right at
Yes.
home here.
I was a huge, a huge Wii U Pro Controller guy. I was like, everyone should own this. The battery life is incredible. You get like 40 hours out of it. I've never, it's really comfortable. It's really great. This should have come with the system. And as soon as they announced the Pro Controller with the Switch, I was there. Like day one, I think I had one of the most expensive days of my life that day, where I got like Breath of the Wild, all the amiibo, the Switch, the Pro Controller, and the case. I got everything. Like, I really set myself up. Because I wanted it, and I wanted to have those things, and I did, and I've enjoyed them. Look at us now, 6 years later, still talking about it, still enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be
So
7 years later. We'll talk about that a little bit later
we'll
on.
talk about it a little bit later. Let's go into a little bit about what some of the sort of big outlets are saying about it. There's some great quotes in here that I wanted to touch on. Particularly, I think this one from GameSpot really did the most to hype me up, get me all jazzy about the game. Which was Tears of the Kingdom is the Legend of Zelda at its finest, borrowing the best pieces and qualities from across the franchise's history and creating something new that is emotionally resonant, captivating, and endlessly rewarding. Which for me is exactly what I want from Tears of the Kingdom. In fact, that's not even the quote I wanted. I've just realised that's not even the quote I bloody wanted. But still, you want something that is the best of what it is. It takes sort of all the best bits, and we talk quite a lot about games being the best of. Elden Ring being the best of Dark Souls and or Souls like games. I'm just going to keep reading this while I try and find the other quote I wanted. But yeah, so GameSpot gave it a 10 out of 10, as most people did.
Well, while you find
IGN,
that quote, then let me read out the IGN one while you find the other quote you wanted. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom somehow improves upon Breath of the Wild in nearly every way. Be that with simple quality of life improvements, a genuinely exciting story, or wildly creative new building mechanics. Now, we obviously knew about the creative building mechanics. I don't think that we knew much about the quality of life improvements or the exciting story up to this point. We obviously saw that trailer. The story for me was the thing that was most lacking in Breath of the Wild. It improved upon Zelda, the formula, it reinvented itself. No one really cared about the story, did they? I don't think so, anyway.
Breath of the Wild really much, it felt like the story had happened and you were living in the world.
Well, absolutely, because you had the memories you had to go and find to piece it all together.
And I think that's fine. I think that that's how the game was set up, and I think that the game does a lot in terms of its environmental storytelling, and the sort of the world tells a big story, and you don't need to have cutscenes to have that, but I appreciate that we had the cutscenes to fill in the background, and that's in not to mention Dark Souls again, but in Dark Souls, the story isn't really there, but if you take the time to sort of look through some of the lore, read some of the stuff, talk to some of the characters, you can sort of piece something together. This was just a lot more here's exactly what happened. We'll give it to you in little bits. You're now trying to correct what happened then, and that was fine for me. And if this seems like it's going to be similar in ways, but the fact that it's that they've said here it's a genuinely exciting story, and even GameSpot saying that it's emotionally resonant.
Maybe this will be the first Zelda game that makes me cry.
Maybe it will be. I'd like to see you cry.
Wow, that's really hard.
Hop on stream. I found the quote I wanted, which is: Tears of the Kingdom is a canvas for your own creativity, a book to write your own stories, a world to create your own legends. It gives you back as much as you put into it and beckons you to soar, burrow, engineer, solve, adventure, and explore. That is the quote that got me jazzed to fuck. Because that's just exactly what I wanted, from this game, was to be in this huge world with like endless creativity and tackle things however I wanted. And I've seen some of the reviews say that if you don't really want to get into all the building stuff, there are things that make it easier for you. You can sort of do it on the most basic level. You can just go, cool, here's a car, or cool,
And
here's
to
a
be
thing I
honest, I
need
feel like
to.
maybe that's how I'll get as I get deeper into the game. I don't know. I can't decide. Like, I'm just part of me thinks at the beginning I'm going to go in, I'm going to have all this energy, and I'm going to be excited, and I'm going to want to experiment and do it in all these different ways.
Hmm.
Part of me thinks maybe I start off basic and then I go to the more advanced stuff the further
Yeah.
into the game I get.
I think as you unlock more things, and as you, because I know that the a lot of the things like the wheels and the fans and a lot of that sort of stuff is like in an inventory space. So you don't fight. There's things that you do find around the world. A lot of it you can just sort of pick up and take with you. So I feel like as I get more of that together, and I'm not like scraping together for a couple of blowers and a rocket. When I've got loads of those, I'll be like, cool, let's just fuck around and see what I can make. And there seems to be a lot of that. And I think the fact that it says it gives back as much as you put into it is just like, and some of the stuff I've seen where it's like I tried something and it worked, and that seems to be the whole ethos of the game is this might work. Oh, it does. Cool. Or this might work. Oh no, it didn't. How can I make it work? I've seen some really interesting like machines. I've seen like people use wheels in interesting ways to like make rudders. I've seen people like IGN said the guy who reviewed for IGN said he was driving a car, hit like a point, like a chasm he couldn't cross, popped a hot air balloon on it, floated across, put back down, took the air balloon off, and just carried on as a car. And I thought that's great. Like you can take your inventions with you, you can mix match them, and that's I think the beauty of like the ability to chop and change things as you go. You can make a creation, and you don't have to be like, oh, this only has one use. You can go, cool, let's update this, let's upgrade it. There's probably going to be someone who's like, I'm going to make a car, I'm going to take that car through the entire game, and I'm just going to keep adding things to it.
I would love
and
that.
It's going to become ridiculous.
Yeah, honestly, I would love that.
that.
What were some of your biggest surprises from reading some of these reviews? I think the biggest one for me was the fact that shrines still exist. I thought they'd been removed entirely. We hadn't seen them in any of the previews yet. But hearing that they've changed the alert sound, so it's less annoying, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that shrines exist in the first place, I think was surprising for me.
I had heard just from like someone had played it already, as they are welcome to do. But I had heard that shrines were back, and at first I was like, oh okay, like it's very much the same setup as the first game. And I think a lot of the reviews I'm seeing, that seems to be like where people are saying, oh, it's just Breath of the Wild 1.5, or people are saying that it's like DLC, and I disagree with that, but still, I do think that I was surprised that the a lot of the setup is the same. A lot of the framework, find shrines, collect things, visit points on the map, like a lot of that is the same. But I think all the stuff they've added is very interesting. I think for me the biggest surprise was the underground, and just size of that map, because not to go too deep into it because I don't want to spoil too much, but the world is sort of in three levels almost, where you have like the Hyrule that you knew, things have changed, but it's basically the Hyrule you knew. Then you have everything in the sky, which is all new, and then you have like a different underground map, which
is seemingly like the dungeons, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are going to be like other dungeons. I'm not entirely sure, because Nintendo did tweet out of the blue that dungeons exist. They just sort of like, it was just a quote pull from an interview. They tweeted out like, oh, the dungeons are great, they're sort of thematically interesting. But this seems to be like an entirely new way to play the game, new to explore. I'm not, I didn't want to read too much into it, so I don't know really what's down there to find, or what sort of what your motivation for going underground is. But it seems like it's a fun challenge, and it seems like there's like a little bit of Elden Ring in there in some ways. Like, remember when you first went down that elevator into Shifa River, and you're treated to this like huge underground world, and you're like, what is this? This is amazing, and you explore through it, and it seems like it's endlessly big. This seems exactly like that, where there's just an entire other world, and I don't know what's down there. I'm really intrigued to get down there and start seeing what's down there.
Yeah, well, talking about the dungeons, we have a quote from one of the directors of the game, and this is from the interview that they tweeted out. It was the developer interview on Nintendo's website, where the developers all spoke about it. And they said that we've made dungeons unique to their respective environments, so we think you'll be able to enjoy the wide variety of regional characteristics. And that was from the technical director, Takahiro Dota. And then the art director expanded upon that, Satoru Takizawa. And he said, making a wide variety was pretty challenging. The 4 divine beasts were the dungeons in the last game, and they shared similar designs. This time, the dungeons are huge and each carry their own regional look and feel, just like traditional The Legend of Zelda games. We think they will provide a satisfying challenge for players. They were certainly a challenge to develop. And I think that also made me really excited. The fact that we are getting a return to maybe those more traditional dungeons. That was another element that was missing from Breath of the Wild. I think that, alongside the story, were the two biggest complaints.
Mm-hmm.
Combine that with some of the quality of life improvements that we've got, like inventory management's been way more improved, fast travel. You get, I don't know if you remember that medallion that you got as part of the DLC, the travel medallion. You get that now right at the beginning. You can just travel anywhere on the map.
Which I think makes perfect sense, considering you can be up in the sky and you can go, cool, let's try and get over there. And if you fail, you're like, well, shit, now I've got to go all the way back to somewhere else. So just being able to be like, okay, I'm going to try something here, which again goes back to the experimentation of the game. I'm going to try something here. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm going to pop the travel medallion down now. So if I fuck up, I can just come back and I don't have to worry too much. And I think that rewards or sort of it engenders exploration. It doesn't make you want to go, I could try that, but I've got, all this gear. I've finally got up here. It took me ages to get up here. I'll never find my way back. I think that's great. I think it's a great choice to bring that back.
Yeah. I'm also pretty excited about the cooking changes as well, that you can get portable cooking pots and huge. You don't have to remember recipes. There's like a menu and you can just like cook the dish now if you want to.
Friend of mine recently started playing the game. He'd sort of never owned a Nintendo console, but borrowed it off of a friend because he just wanted to finally give it a go. And he said, he just texted me once and was like, all I've done today is cook. Because he said to me, like, oh, is there like, your weapons and your shields and your arrows and bows are all limited? Not your arrows, your bows are all limited. You can only carry a certain number. Is that the case for ingredients and cooking? And I said, ingredients, I'm pretty sure it's just like 99 of everything. But cooking, I never hit the limit. I don't think there is a limit.
No, I never hit a
limit. He said
either.
that he hit the limit there and then. He was just trying everything. He was just getting a load of stuff together. He was just like cooking. So the fact that that's like improved in some ways. Now, I enjoyed the cooking. There's a really satisfying noise. It's really cool to.
Yeah, but it was really cool seeing the sizzle like going on, and then you knew it was going to be a good one because like it had like a slightly different animation. It got to the point there where you were just skipping that, and you were just like, can't I make like 6 of these at once rather than having to like make it 6 times?
Yeah, I know I'm about to do something that needs a lot of stamina. I know I want stamina potions. Please just let me make a load of them at once. But yeah, it's great. I'm not entirely. I haven't done too much research into the cooking myself because again, I've tried not to spoil as much as possible. But I wonder if it's like in the previous game where you see recipes dotted around on like posters and stuff. I wonder if there's like
that's what it's going to be, and then it gets added to your recipe book. But I also think when you experiment, it seems to get saved into that menu, so you can kind of see what you can cook with the ingredients that you've got, and then you can go in and cook that, which is good.
That's an app I want for real life, to be like, this is what's in my cupboard right now. I don't want to go out and buy anything. Just tell me what I have a
friend who was working on an app like that. He was using machine learning, and you pointed the camera at the ingredients you had, and it would figure out what those ingredients were, and then it would give you a recipe for those ingredients.
Go and help him. Go and like do his dishes. Take his kids to school. Go and help him out.
Just go ask ChatGPT. Be like, make a recipe with this, and you'll end up with something that doesn't work. It's great.
Oh yeah. It will just make dubious food from Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah, I love dubious food. I like that like farty noise that it used to make.
Yeah. Let's get back into the last couple of reviews. These are quite short. Gaming Bible, their top quote was an expectation-defying work of brilliance. And I think that's a lot of what we've just said there, of like things that are surprising us and the dungeons and like things we weren't really expecting or things we were hoping would happening. And if the fact that this game defies expectations, and considering Breath of the Wild's reception and how people talk about it still to this day, people have got a bit high expectations. So that's really great to hear. The last of the sort of like positive reviews is Eurogamer I've got here, who has said a terrific Breath of the Wild follow-up with some brilliant new systems, amazing views, and even more dungeon type spaces, plus a slightly deadening emphasis on gathering resources. So they've given it a 4 stars, and I think that last bit there is probably why, that there's an emphasis on gathering resources, and I think we've seen that in a lot of the arrows. Every single type of arrow requires a resource. Bombs now require you to find the bombs. You can't just have unlimited of them. So I can see why that might be a sticking point for some people.
But I like that. I loved that in Breath of the Wild. I loved the weapon degradation. I thought it added an element during battle. It's like, oh crap, what am I going to do? I need to go get a weapon off one of these guys. Can I experiment? Can I throw a bomb at them? Can I do any of that? One of the other quotes that I really liked was from Keza McDonald over at The Guardian. And she said, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, pure magic. Occasionally a game comes along that makes you look at life in a whole new way. This glorious, hilarious, utterly absorbing Zelda installment is one of them. And I was just super excited to hear that. Like the fact that I know I'm going to be in awe at this game. And just like, even from the intro that I've seen online, just like seeing that intro and what happens in it, and then that you get, I never thought anything would top that Breath of the Wild moment where you come out
Walking
on the Great Plateau,
yeah.
and let me tell you, Tears of the Kingdom does it.
Does it?
Improves upon that in every way.
Wow!
Like when I've seen the video of it, and it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm excited to play this game now. And I'd seen enough at that point, and I was like, yep, don't need to see any more of this.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I look forward to seeing that tomorrow, and I wonder if it swells my heart. Before I get onto this final review, which is the Gfinity one we spoke about before, I want to sort of touch on a question from our Discord from Left Eye Lazy, who said, as someone who didn't finish Breath of the Wild, but spent enough time to get their money's worth out of it, I was wondering if you'd recommend Tears of the Kingdom. At a $70 price point, is it even worth revisiting a sequel when you didn't finish the first one?
Yes.
Yes. I'd like to point here to the Gfinity review, which is the sort of the only mixed review on Metacritic. It's the only one I've seen that's sort of not up in the sort of like 8, 9, 10 range. They gave it a 6 out of 10. And the top quote from this is, if you've yet to step into the open world of Hyrule, Tears of the Kingdom is the best way to experience it, with just enough new ground to keep things interesting. But if you didn't gel with the 2017 release, the story alone might not be worth the second attempt. So it depends if you are worried about.
That's such a strange take to me, because like there's so much added to it, right? You've got the sky, the underground, not to mention all of the new mechanics. I don't know. I struggle.
I think what we're looking at here is from the end of that quote. But if you didn't gel with the 2017 release, it says to me this was reviewed by someone who didn't enjoy the original game, and they maybe were hoping that this game would add enough new stuff and get them back into it. And I think if they think that didn't work, then that's fine. And the fact they've made a point of saying that in the quote, I still think this is a legitimate review. I don't think it's like a bad take, so to say. They just didn't like the original game, and I'm sure if I read the full review, I would see that. But I'm sure there's also loads of details in there that I don't want to see, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, it depends from Left Eye Lazy. If you didn't finish it because you got tired of it, or you weren't sort of enjoying it towards the end, then it seems like here, this might not be worth another go. But if you're like, you just didn't have time to, you really wanted to go back to it, never got a chance to, and you really want to get in on this when it comes out and get some, so you don't have all the FOMO and you want to experience it, it seems like you're not going to miss anything, because it says here, if you're yet to step into the open world of Hyrule, it's the best way to experience it. So if you're like, if the reason you didn't do it is because, you just couldn't do it, then yeah. But if you didn't enjoy it, then yeah, maybe not.
If I remember correctly, Left Eye Lazy bought the game pretty late, wasn't at launch. But that might have been Mario Kart. I don't know if he bought Mario Kart either. If maybe that's the case, I feel like getting in when everyone's playing it and being part of the zeitgeist and being able to tweet about it and post about it in the Discord and seeing all the creations people are making, I think that is worth your time, because I feel like you'll be caught up in the hype. Everyone will be playing it. Everyone will be talking about it. You can engage in that conversation, and that for me is invaluable. That's one of the things I absolutely love about video games.
Yes, I agree. That's why we do this entire show, right? It's because we want to talk about things. We want to make our very important and very correct voices heard, right, Steve?
Yeah. The coalition.
There's
the initiative.
Yeah, very, very correct. The name I like to call that sort of thing, which is something I felt for the first time in Tears of the Kingdom, and I felt very much in Elden Ring, is the concept of crowdsourced exploration, where you're not just playing through a game. You're like, did you get to this point yet? Oh, when you get there, you'll be great. It's, have you been over here yet?
Yeah.
Oh, you have to go over there because I found this.
I love
what did you
find? Playing Elden Ring. And being on Twitch while other people were playing Elden Ring, and I could tell them where to go, or I was playing Elden Ring on Twitch and they could tell me where to go and what to do and guide me while I was doing quest lines. I know the same thing's going to happen with Tears of the Kingdom. I know people are going to be like, well, did you know if you fuse these two items together, or you use Ultra Hand to combine this and that, you'll be
Mm-hmm.
able to get to this area and do this thing
Yep.
and defeat this enemy. I know all of
Because
that
in a
creativity
world,
is going to come out, and like the wiki's going to
yes.
be up and running
Oh
tomorrow, and
yeah.
it's going to be filling up with all of this information and stuff that people are finding out about, and that's so
Yeah.
exciting.
In a game that's so vast and packed with things, and there's so much creativity and so many sort of choices to make, you wouldn't, it wouldn't, they wouldn't expect you to be able to find everything yourself. And I think that's a lot of what the Korok seeds are about, where there's 900 of them, not because they expect you to find all 900, because they put enough in the world so that the average player could find enough to get enough slots to fill up their inventory, right? And I feel like with a lot of stuff in Tears of the Kingdom, it's almost like they want you to be talking about it. One, just because it helps market the game, obviously, but two, because there's just so much in there that you might miss a tiny detail, but someone else has just happened to notice or stumble upon, and then you get to go and experience it yourself, and you get to then if you find something like that, you can share it and you can talk to your friends about it. And it's not just, oh, if you got to this point in the story, oh, okay, cool, like I can't spoil anything for you. It's like, oh, if you go over here, there's something cool there, and you can just go and do that now. You don't have to wait 10 hours until you get into the game. You can just go and see this thing now. And I really liked that in Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild. And I feel like Tears of the Kingdom is going to be that on a whole nother level, just
Oh
because
yeah.
of the huge underground. There's so many islands to discover that you might not naturally come across a lot of them. All of the different parts, all the things you can build, all of the things you can fuse, all the things you can attach your arrows to. I think there's going to be a lot of just dicking about, and I love dicking about in games. Of just like
Me
being in a
too.
sandbox, trying things out.
It's nice to be able to have that dicking about, but then also have structure and a goal that you're
Yeah,
working towards. And it seems
yeah,
like you've definitely got that in this game. I feel like in Breath of the Wild, obviously we had that because we knew where the four different beasts were and had to take them down and things. And I imagine we'll have the same thing with the dungeons, and we'll know where they are, and we've got to go and defeat them,
yeah.
and then get to the castle at the end to rescue Zelda. But it feels like there's going to be a lot more of that exploration, that sense of exploration that I absolutely loved that Breath of the Wild gave me, and then was completely surpassed for me by Elden Ring. I think this again is going to take it to a whole new level of exploration that
I
I
think so.
could have only ever dreamed of. And seeing some of the puzzles and some of the kind of challenges that you have to overcome in the reviews and the trailers that I've seen, I'm through the roof excited for this. It's
I
like
think so.
it's 5 hours until the digital version unlocks in the UK,
Oh, really?
and I'm like, part of me really just wants to buy a digital copy so I could play it tonight and just stay up all night and play the game. That's completely ridiculous. I've got work tomorrow. I can't do that. But as soon as it comes tomorrow, it's going straight on my Switch, and I'm going to play the hell out of this thing.
I don't know why I just said, "Oh, really?" to you, telling me what the time was. Like, I don't have a clock and don't live in the same country as you,
Yeah,
and
you've got no clue.
don't know what time midnight is. But oh well, whatever.
No.
So yeah, I mean the reviews are good. I'm very excited. You're very excited. Before we move on to the next little bit, is there anything in particular that you're very excited about trying that sort of come out of the reviews today? Is there anything new to you? I think we might have covered like the biggest surprise, but like what is something new that's come out today or in the last couple of days that has made you like, I want to do that, I want to play this?
I think it was the shrines and the fact that it's going to follow a similar pattern, but there's just way more to explore. Like, where are those shrines going to be? Are they going to be underground, in the sky, on the kind of earth? And the fact that I may need to craft these machines in order to access them. And combine that with traditional dungeons that are themed individually and they don't just all look the same, and there's probably a lot more to do in them and more puzzles to solve. And the environmental puzzles that you just have out in the open in traversal to get to different areas. There's like, oh, I've got to construct all this together to get that zone I charged to be able to build this machine to get to that next point. All of that stuff, you combine it all together. It's all the things I love. I love exploration games. I love environmental puzzle games. I love adventure games. You put all that together and tie it up and wrap it all off with a nice story and as the neat little bow on top. You're onto a real winner, and it's no surprise why most of the reviews are like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and you've got the odd outlier. Like the one outlier is the G Infinity review. It's very interesting.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I think for me, the thing that most excited me, I think, is when we heard that dungeons were back. Is you remember when you beat the Divine Beast in Breath of the Wild, you would get Rivali's Gale, Darek Protection, all of those things. I'm very interested to know what the dungeons reward you with,
Oh, I never even thought
because
about that. Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to be if they give you anything, there could be absolutely nothing, and it could just be like these dungeons are just huge puzzles, like or whatever. But if there is like a key item in there that then becomes a part of your, because I remember there was an item that in one of the trailers where Link like swings a weapon and then something flies out. I now think that that's probably more likely to be a fused weapon. But if that's like something it gives you that lets you do something that you get from a dungeon and then that like allows you to go to other places, that'd be really cool. But I'm curious about what the reward is for doing these dungeons in the same way that, like I said, like
Well,
the champion's blessings.
you also got the reward that the end boss was easier as well, and I wonder
Yeah,
if that's going to be the same thing here. I have no
the
idea.
bosses in general are also very very intrigued by some of these bosses. I've not really seen any of them, only the ones that have been in the trailers.
I've
But I'm very
specifically
excited.
avoided looking at them because I really want them
Yeah,
to be surprises. It was a bit
yeah,
boring that they were all Ganon in
yeah, yeah.
Breath of the Wild.
I think them all sort of being various versions of Ganon, all basically the same with like a gimmick
It's
between
like,
them.
oh,
Like,
here's an electrical Ganon, here's a fire Ganon.
yeah, yeah. Whereas we've obviously seen now like the Gleeok with the sort of three heads. We've seen the sort of the big cube robot thing that seems to be maybe replacing the older what they called the rock dudes that are they
Oh
throw
yeah,
their
yeah,
arms at you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm very excited to see some of these bosses. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
yeah.
just like I'm looking forward to coming up against something and going, oh shit, and running away. That's what I'm most excited for.
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned the cube, dude. I'm really looking forward to fighting the Channel 4 logo. So you know what? Very, very excited about that.
Do you remember Cubix, the cartoon character? It might have been a bit after our time.
Cubix? No.
He was
Cubix?
after our time. Yeah, Cubix,
Cubix,
and
the
he was
friendly
like,
robot.
and I'm pretty sure he could like transform into things, and there were like toys of him, and like the cubes fell into little bits, and I was like, that's really cool. Reminds me of Cubix.
Wow. Of course, it's by Saban.
Yeah, a little bit after our time.
Good old
There's
Power
Cubix
Rangers.
toys. Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, very excited for that. Very excited to see what happens, and I'm very excited for you to, or us, with Pete back next week to discuss our first sort of like almost a week with the game, where we're up to, and how much of these things we were excited about have really like resonated with us. Maybe
Yeah.
there are some things that we don't like about the changes. So let's
Well,
let's meet back here next week.
and if you've got thoughts on the game, please leave a comment. Let us know. Write in to questions@flipscreen.games or join the Discord. There's going to be a new channel set up, all for Tears of the Kingdom talk, where you can just talk. Please use spoiler tags, but you can just talk freely in there if you want to. And yeah, we'll read out some of your thoughts on the show next week.
Yes, next week's gonna be a bumper episode, but we don't want to just have us three talking. We want to hear what you think too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so before we move on to the next section of the show, I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping, if that's okay with you, Steve.
No. Yeah,
okay,
sure.
right, let's move on.
Just
Aha! So our Patreon producers for May are Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Snack Hugo, Tyler the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you guys very much for supporting the show. We appreciate everything that you do to support us, and I've recently been appreciating the Discord comments that I can finally see. So thanks everyone for leaving those messages and for keeping us going. Steve, why don't you tell the folks where else they can find us and support us?
If you want to join those fine folks, you can head over to patreon.com/flipscreengames. Drop us $1 or $2 per month and gain early access to all of our shows when Pete's here. I can't do early access when it's just me, I'm afraid. Early access to all of our shows. And you can also grab a bunch of goodies. We've got some other things in the works over there, and you'll get access to like a special Discord channel you can come and talk to us in if you want to. If that's
the only Discord channel with pictures of Steve's feet in.
Yeah, that's true. If you want to look at my Monster Munch feet, they're in they're in there.
Delicious pickled onion flavour.
Yeah. And otherwise, head over to our website, flipscreen.games. That's where you can gain access to everywhere we are on the web. Twitter, Discord, Twitch, you know the deal. Come find us all there. And on Mastodon, flipscreen.social if you want to interact with us over there. I know a bunch of people who listen to the Steam Deck podcast are on Mastodon. Of course, Linux nuts over there. But if Twitter's more your thing, we're still there too. So come find us.
Some of us are.
Some of us are. I'm not anymore.
So let's move on to the second section of the show today, which is just this week. excuse me, Nintendo's investor report for the end of the fiscal year, that is from April 2022 to March 2023, was released, and we got some updated numbers, some sales figures, and some other little tidbits that we're going to discuss. Some juicy little numbers.
Love a
So,
good, like a little morsel of
little morsels.
yeah.
Something we're going to talk about in a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to focus on some of these numbers. So the information I'm going to give here is up to date as of the end of March 2023. So all the sort of sales numbers, things could have changed since the end of March. We've had like a month and 11 days or whatever that things could have changed in. But the Nintendo Switch in between January and March sold over 3 million units. I think it was like 3.09, which means there's been a total of 125 million and 62 thousand. Is that right?
Yeah, no, yeah, 620,000.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. 125.62 million. There we go. Units of a Switch sold, which is huge. It's not racing towards the DS right now, and I don't think at this point in the life cycle, considering there was a 22.1% year-on-year decline of units sold. Only sold 17.97 million units last year, or the year that's just finished, and this year they're only really predicting to sell 15 million units. So obviously things are starting to slow down. As we know, it happens at the end of every console's life, and Tears of the Kingdom is sort of going to be maybe one of the big swan songs of the system. That, you know, I think we're maybe going to end up about 140, 150
Oh,
maybe.
see, that really upsets me. I really wanted the PS2 to be knocked off the top slot. It was at 155 million, and I don't think it's ever going to be at this point.
I think the only
unless they keep the Switch name, and they're just like, this is the same console, but it's a Switch Pro.
Yeah, like with the DS and the 3DS, you do like this is the Switch Pro, this is the Switch this is the new Nintendo Switch, and then you can just tack those numbers on, baby. We're riding it up to 300 million.
That's what PS4 did. You know, they had the PS4 Pro. People bought more of them, and they carried on. Away they go. I think they're probably going to do that. I think they want that number one spot.
Also, I mean, you've got such strong brand recognition now. Why would you drop the Switch? You know, you had an issue with going from Wii to Wii U, and I think if you change it from anything related to the Switch that isn't Switch, you're going to have that same sort of confusion. If you completely change it, you lose Switch.
People know Switch that don't know Nintendo. They're just like, oh, that's my Switch. And they don't necessarily know that it's associated with Nintendo.
Yeah. I know loads of people who have never played Nintendo consoles and have been bothered by Nintendo that bought Switches simply for the the USP of playing games on the go.
Yeah, so I want my kid to play Minecraft so I can watch TV and they can sit over there.
Exactly. Yeah, huge thing. Well, I think they don't. Yeah, there's certain things they have to keep, but yeah, who knows? The reason for the decline of hardware units, according to I can't remember the chap's name, who is the current. Hang on, Shintaro Furukawa. Sorry, the Japanese one. He said, as shortages, the reason it declined is shortages of semiconductors and other components impacted production until around the end of summer. So last year, there must have been a little bit of a decline.
I don't know about that.
I just think it's the end of the year. I think we're all to the end of this life. We're just winding down. I think they've got to give excuses to keep, to stop the. I
mean, they could well be right. Obviously, they know, but but I never saw it sell out. I never saw Switch out of stock.
Yeah.
I never saw people struggling to find a Nintendo Switch. And I feel like I would have if it was down to the semiconductor shortage, because that's the thing we had with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X.
It's not they couldn't keep up, is it? Also, like you have said before, they can't really lie to investors. So I feel like if they were just like, oh, this is the reason, people would either call them out on their bullshit, or investors would start losing trust if the truth started coming out. But yeah, so that's hardware. Let's start talking a little bit of software. So software sales in total on the Switch have reached over 1 billion units. There have been 1 billion games sold on the Switch.
Is that with a B?
That is with a B, and there's a lot of games on the Switch, and I can see why that would be. Some of the big sellers in the last this isn't in the last quarter necessarily. This is like just some updates on some of the games. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have sold 22.1 million units combined since launch in November, I think it was. So obviously no one gave enough of a shit to actually not buy the game, apart from me. Smug, and you, Steve. I'm sure you can be smug as well if you want.
Yeah, I didn't buy that. I didn't buy that game, but that's not because. Well, partially it was because it.
You just don't play Pokemon.
I just don't like Pokemon.
Yeah. But yeah, that's sort of like careering towards the sales of Sword and Shield. I'm pretty sure. I think it's probably going to overtake especially with this DLC coming out, and people maybe when they start, if they start bug fixing and the DLC comes out and it's got a load of sort of improvements and stuff, people might be like, now's the time to get on the game. And hey, you never know, it might even pull me in if I really want to play a Pokemon later in the year. Splatoon 3 has sold a total of 10.67 million units, which is pretty good going.
I feel like that's probably disappointing for them, though. Like, how many did Splatoon 2 sell? 2? It's got to be at least double that, I would imagine.
As of March 2022, Splatoon 2 has sold over 13.3 million copies worldwide. 13.3 million copies.
Okay, that's okay. Then Splatoon 3 did better than I expected. I wonder how many people are still playing it though, because
yeah, I think I wonder the same. Because yeah, I think
I see nobody talking about it.
Well, the thing is, they're doing events and stuff, and I don't even know these events are happening because I don't really have the game anymore. But I do think Splatoon has a good user base, and that's obvious by the sales here. And I think some of the stuff that they're doing has been for the fans. A lot of the DLC stuff they've been doing is very much like fan content. So they're catering to their users. It's obviously doing very well. There's still more time for it to sell. There's still time to support it. Still time for an extra DLC that might come out and bump it. And we know there's one coming. So yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, the DLC looked really interesting as well. It was like that world with the white world that you maybe have to color in, which was kind of cool, and I liked that as a concept.
I think that's a really cool concept as well. Like the game Gree, if you ever played Gree.
Or the game that was formerly known as Draw Dog and then got rebranded to Chicory, which I think was a far worse name.
Yeah, I think so too. Or De Blob, another game where
I've never heard of De Blob.
Have you never heard of De Blob? D-E Blob.
D-Blob.
You've never heard of De Blob?
No, I've never heard of De Blob.
It was on the Wii, it's on the Switch, there was a sequel, it's on Steam. I think De Blob did very well.
Okay, do I need to play De Blob? Is De Blob good?
80 Metacritic on the Wii U version.
I have seen this logo before.
Yeah. And then there's De Blob 2. I think both of them are on Switch.
Wow.
God, the logos really fucking got boring between De Blob and De Blob 2. De Blob 2 wasn't as well received, but maybe I'll play De Blob on Switch at some point if I really get like a Splatoon hankering and don't want to.
Do you know another platform that De Blob was apparently on, according to Google? BlackBerry. So,
really?
Yeah.
I'd love to. Well, that's the De Blob I want to play.
Yeah, I want to play it on the BlackBerry. Can we stream it, please?
Yeah, we can
stream De Blob on BlackBerry.
Is there a BlackBerry emulator?
Yeah, I would imagine there is. Their operating system's QNX. I would imagine there's an emulator for it.
De Blob, the Switch version of it got an 8 out of 10 from Nintendo Life. I think we should play De Blob.
De Blob is one of the 10 million unit sellers, the million unit sellers?
They don't state because let me get to the quote. 35 games in the past financial year sold 1 million units, including third-party titles. De Blob could have been one of those games.
Yeah, but they won't disclose third-party titles because it's not their thing to do, is it?
But it could. But we're saying that it could happen because they specifically stated third-party titles are included in this figure.
I'm going to write THQ Nordic an email, and I'm going to see if De Blob sold 1 million.
Yep. See if you can get us a code for De Blob.
Yeah.
Reach out. Say we're talking the most about De Blob that anyone's ever spoken about. De Blob
just look at the transcript for this podcast and count how many times we've said De Blob. We have said De Blob a lot.
De Blob.
I think De Blob. You know, did you ever play Habbo Hotel? This is really.
Yes. No,
remember when you swore in Habbo Hotel and it would say Bobber? I think De Blob should be our swap out for swear words.
Yeah.
So it was De Blobbing great.
That is a De Blobbing great idea.
Yeah. There we go.
De Blob you, Steve. I can't believe you don't want to play De Blob with me. No, yeah. Reach out to THQ Nordic about that De Blob code. I would play De Blob. I'll talk about it some more.
Yeah.
De Blob. So let's move on from that De Blob segment and go back to some of the games that have sold. Switch Sports, again, that's not De Blob, sold 9.6 million units in the last financial year. Now, I can't remember when Switch Sports came out. Was it last year?
No, year before.
Okay.
Chewy was obsessed with this game. Absolutely
obsessed. It's great. It is good. Some of the games are great. Some of them maybe not so much. Like the sword fighting one, I didn't really enjoy that much. But like the tennis is great. The online for it's really great. I really love how you can like shake your little stick and you can like do the emotes and really like troll people online. And sure, that's 9.6 million total
Oh,
since
yeah,
launch.
it did. No, it did. It
That's
came out
pretty fine.
April 29th, so it was just in that fiscal year.
Okay. Isn't it March fiscal year? End of March.
Yeah, I guess it starts in April.
Starts
the
in
fiscal
April.
year.
Yeah.
So
It's not the tax year, Steve. Come on, mate. The next update. I don't know if you noticed, but this is going down in descending order, descending order. Fucking hell. Sorry, blobbing now. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in the last fiscal year sold 8.45 million units.
how many of
Which,
these were tied to the Black Friday sale? Like,
oh
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
would
I
love
would.
to know at this point who's not bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that wasn't left eye lazy. Honestly,
I'll tell you, who has bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. 53.79 million people.
yeah, it's like
Um,
it's almost a 50% attachment rate to the
yeah,
consoles. It's insane,
I'm pretty sure
insane
it's almost in
numbers.
the top like 8 best-selling games of all time.
It's
Here we go.
if you combine that with the Wii U sales of Mario Kart 8, it's got
Yeah.
to be up there as one of the best-selling games of all time. It has
Okay,
to be.
okay. Guess where?
Number 4.
Number 6.
What's above it? Tetris is definitely above
Starting
it.
with Minecraft at number 1.
We've got
283 million units.
Wii Sports has got to be there. Tetris has got to be there.
Just let me do my thing. Grand Theft Auto 5, 175 million. Then it's Tetris. Then it's Wii Sports.
Yeah.
Can you guess number 5? Because this surprised me. I forgot that this was such a big deal and that I'm one of these people and that this made such a big wave. And that because of this game, we have another just absolute powerhouse of a game that's now probably surpassed it many, many times over.
What?
Those I'm not hyperbole.
This has got to be
hyperbolating anything.
hyperbole. It's got to be.
No, I'm not hyperbolating anything. It's PUBG Battlegrounds. And because of PUBG Battlegrounds, we have Fortnite Battle Royale.
Yeah, okay, fair point. Yeah, I mean, but no one plays that anymore, do they? I forgot that was a
Which
paid
one?
game
PUBG?
at one point. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
PUBG.
no one plays PUBG anymore. I think I wish it was like that time again. 2017, man, what a year!
2017 was an
PUBG.
absolute blockbuster year. It really was.
Huge year. So yeah, that's Mario Kart 8. That's the 6th best-selling game of all time. Just casually selling another 8.45 million units 6 years after
and
launch.
it's going to keep selling. It's going to keep selling.
Oh, yeah.
This eventually is going to become the number one because they're never going to make another Mario Kart. It's just going to be you've got to buy Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and we're going to keep
Deluxe
adding
2.
DLC to it forever and ever and ever.
Mario Kart Ultimate next, I bet.
They're all here.
They're all here, including King Boo and PT Piranha. The next game, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, sold in this fiscal year 3.8. Sorry, not in this fiscal year. In this.
It is the fiscal year, the financial year, isn't it? Or is it this quarter?
Yeah, but I can't remember if this sales from the quarter. 3.81 million units for Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
That feels like a lot for one quarter for Kirby.
That feels like a lot for one. But Kirby came out last year, didn't it? Kirby came out Kirby came out within this financial year, didn't it?
No, I was playing that on holiday last year. So maybe. I don't know.
I got it at launch. Let's find out when Kirby came.
Yeah, it must have been last. It was last year. It came out sometime last year.
It was definitely last year. I just need to know when it came out. If it was like March. Okay, yeah. So it came out at the end of March. It probably sold 3 million units around launch, which is fucking great if it did. And then it's now reached a total of 6.46
Yeah, so it sold
million.
3.81 million units over the course of the year. Probably the same as Metroid Prime Remastered. Has sold another 1.09 million units since its release. Or is it only sold 1 million in total?
So it sold. So as of March 2023, so that's 7 weeks after the launch, and then less than 4 weeks after the physical release, it sold 1.09 million units, which I think is pretty good. It's a third of Metroid Dread, which is the best-selling Metroid game. It didn't have any marketing; it just drops.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were probably waiting for the physical, maybe because they couldn't get it. I'm making a lot of excuses here. It sounds like, but I do think that's a pretty good number, and I feel like we're going to see that continue to sell a little bit. It's had another month. I think maybe when the second and third game, if the second and third game come out, when Metroid Prime 4 starts happening, people want to get back into it. I think we're going to see that game keep rising. I don't think maybe it won't reach quite as high as Dread. Who knows?
I hope it doesn't reach as high as Dread, because I don't want them to be like, oh, we're not going to make any more 2D ones. The 3D one does way better. And
you haven't played Metroid Prime Remastered, have you?
No, I have no plans to.
Can you get your fucking life together, please? Can you sort your blobbing act out?
My deblobbing life is great, thank you, Max.
Okay,
And I'm deblobbing looking forward to Tears of the Kingdom tomorrow. I do not have time for Metroid Prime Remastered right now.
Friend of mine beat Breath of the Wild for the first time 2 days ago, and immediately
And he only started it 2 days prior, speedrunning.
yeah. He spent like 60 hours on it. As soon as he beat it, he immediately booted up Metroid Prime Remastered yesterday.
And now he's beat that as well. Because he's an absolute mad lad.
He's like, I need to beat it before. He finished a job, starting a new job today. So he's like, I want to play as much Metroid as I can. So we'll see how he does with that.
He was even playing it in the shower. He took it in with him. He was like,
he's
can't
a bath
put
man,
this game
so I reckon
down.
he probably could have played it in the bath safely. So yeah, that's all the sort of the big financial stuff. I think there's some interesting numbers in there. I think
nothing surprising though. The only real big surprise for me was that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, nobody cared about the performance issues on that game and just carried on buying it anyway. But I could have told you that anyway because I saw so many people playing it regardless. And I've had friends who've bought the game who aren't really in the kind of the Nintendo verse, the listening to podcasts and catching up on the news. They just bought it because it was Pokemon, and they're like, I'm having a good time with it. It's the best Pokemon I've ever played.
Some people just want to play Pokemon sometimes, and a friend of mine who, my manager now, the last Pokemon we played together was when Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu came out, and he's not played Pokemon since, but he had played Pokemon when he was younger. He's 36 now, so he's old, and when last week he was like, what's the best Pokemon game for me to buy and play right now? Like I just feel like playing Pokemon. I said, I feel like you would enjoy Arceus, but I do feel like Scarlet and Violet, if you just want to play Pokemon as you know it, as you remember it, that's the one. And I can see why that did so well because it's an easy sell. It's not here's a new way to play Pokemon. It's untested, it's untried, blah blah blah. You know Pokemon and that's what it provided. So like I said earlier, if it comes to the end of the year and the DLC is great and they fixed a bunch of stuff, I'll probably end up giving it a go myself. So I am was a huge Pokemon fan. I just didn't really enjoy Arceus, and the sort of performance stuff put me off Scarlet and Violet quite a lot. But I do like some of what the game's doing. I like I'm picking up what it's laying down, Steve. So yeah, that's the financial stuff. However, there was one extra little bit that came out of the investor briefing that I want to touch on now, and I think we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about. Is that okay with you, Steve?
Yeah, sounds great, Max.
Really asking you for permission for a lot of these things today. Just want to make sure you're okay. Just want to make sure you're having a good time. That we're,
I always have a good time.
Enjoying ourselves.
It's a blobbing good time when I talk to you, Max.
Blobbing good time. I do too. So during the investor briefing, President Shintaro Furukawa confirmed to investors that there are no plans to release any hardware during the next fiscal year, which means that we should not expect Switch 2, Switch Pro, new Nintendo Switch, Switch Lite 2. We should not expect anything until after March 2024, which I think gives you two a couple of points on the Flip Screen Games predictions, which we covered in this week's Flip Screen Games podcast. If you want to listen to that, you can see how in some ways Pete was right, but in many ways I was righter.
And in many ways Pete was wrong and has a red square on the board. So.
Yes, I agree. Yes, yeah. More Pete slander. So that seems to be, I guess, a good way of shutting down these rumors. I think we've had Switch Pro rumors since like 2020, 2021. It's a good way to put those down for now. We can just sort of enjoy what we have, enjoy Tears of the Kingdom without worrying that we're not getting the best version of it because we don't know what's coming. However, Japanese financial newspaper Nikkei, I think that's how it's pronounced, Nikkei, in an article, said that sources close to them had stated that development seems to be progressing well about the Switch 2 when speaking about the Switch 2 release date window. And they said that a product launch won't happen before next spring. So we know the second part is correct. I don't know what came first, this quote or the Furukawa's quote, but yeah, that lines up. Product launch won't happen before next spring. But it's good to know that development seems to be progressing well on this new system. That they clearly are working something because they're always working on something. But it's good to know that there is a future for the Switch and it's not just going to sort of like fizzle out. And that they obviously have plans for what's next. They're going to keep that momentum going. Today, a new development happened in this sort of story. The Sharp CEO, so Sharp makes LCD displays for Nintendo Switch. The CEO Robert Wu, in I think it was in their own sort of investment briefing, said, "I can't comment on any details regarding specific customers. This is in relation to a question. But as to a new gaming console, we've been involved in its R&D stage, and they're making an LCD display for a new gaming console. So they're clearly working on something. It's a lot harder
That could be anything though, right?
yeah, right. So I was going to say it's a lot harder to say that it's the Switch now because there's so many of these devices coming out now. The Steam Deck has really opened up the floodgates. The ROG Ally has just sort of like been launched and reviewed, and like you can buy them now. Like there's so many of these that are going to be coming out that could be anything. I think just because they happen to make the LCD or they happen to make displays for the Switch, I don't think it's necessarily the Switch.
They could be working on, the ROG Ally for all we know. That's what it could be. It could be the LCD that's in that thing, and that they were involved
Well, it says they were
in the
involved...
R&D phase.
Yeah. It says new gaming console. I mean, yeah, you're right. It could be the ROG Ally. It could be something that's coming out. We could be seeing like the Razer version of it. There could be it could be anything, right?
I think
people
Sharp
sort of linked this to the Switch.
I think Sharp also supply the screens to the Playdate. So it could be something as simple as that,
Yeah.
like a next generation of that weird black and white screen that they've got.
Yeah. It could be anything, but people have really sort of linked this down to the Switch. The reason I think that, or hope that this maybe isn't relation to a new Nintendo console, is that an LCD display will be a step down from the current OLED that we have in the Switch OLED, which I think is a fantastic screen. I think it's like one of the best screens on any sort of device I've used. It's so colourful. It's so just vibrant. It's nice to look at. It's a nice size on the screen. Small bezels, blah blah blah, all the good things. If they are just going to release a Switch 2 and it's just got an LCD display, that's a step backwards for me, and I think that's the wrong thing to do.
I think it could be okay if it's micro LED or some kind of technology like that, similar to what's used in the iPad Pro. Those displays look great, and they've got.
If they're micro LED, are they still LCD displays? Surely they're two different things, right?
No, they're LCDs. So it's the LED backlit light array are like micro LEDs.
Okay.
Whereas OLED is each pixel is organically emitting light and can be turned on and off.
Yeah.
So I think if it's something like that, then that gives us the advantage of potentially we get something like VRR on the handheld if they can't do that with the current OLED display, but they could do that with an LCD. I would forego OLED for a refresh rate that's variable and gives me a smoother experience. I'd be much more happy with something like that. I think.
Interesting. You have swayed me slightly on that. I think you're right. I think if it's VRR or something like that, I think I'd be very up for.
I'd give up a bit of contrast for some smooth frame rates any day of the week.
I think so, but I also hope that a more powerful Switch would, hopefully mitigate some of those things, and that just having more raw power would be better.
I think you're right, but I want both of them in the same way that the ROG Ally gives us both, and then it gives us that bit of headroom, right? That when we get to 7 years down the line and we're coming up to 2030, and we're talking about we're still playing the same console. But it matters a little bit less because we're still getting decent frame rates out of it that feel smooth. Because, if it was targeting 60 and now we're only getting 40, it still feels good. And I think I'd be happier with that.
Yeah, I think I would like a balance between there, Do you think hang on, what was I going to say? So, do you think in terms of like the sort of the power of this sort of thing, where you will know more about this than I will, where the sort of the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, and the sort of like more handheld PCs, more handheld mobile gaming processors that are now out and about, the new the new Ryzen chips that we spoke about on the Steam Deck podcast a couple of weeks ago, the sort of the Z1. Are there sort of NVIDIA chips now that are coming out or have recently come out where currently the Tegra is what's in the Switch now? I know that there was a newer chip that people were saying, they could just put that chip in it, it'll be better. That was pre-Steam Deck. That was pre all of this sort of like what's happening now. There's new things happening all the time. What do you think? Like, what NVIDIA chip could they put in it, and what would it look like, do you think?
So they're very different chips. So the Steam Deck and what's in the ROG Ally, those Z1 Extreme chips from AMD, they're x86 based. So it's what you had in a PC initially. They were basically, AMD were Intel clones. That's why they were called x86, because it was a 386 chip. That would be like Intel would start with a 286, a 386, a 486. Then they just changed it to be an x86, so it's a number followed by 86. AMD
Mm-hmm.
cloned those chips. They're one of the only other companies that are allowed to make x86 chips, as far as I'm aware. The Switch uses ARM-based, so it's the chips that you have in your phone. Right. It's a RISC-based processor rather than a x86, and so the chip that's seemingly going to go into the next Switch is the Tegra T239, and the current Switch has the Tegra. The Tegra X1 is essentially an enhanced version of the original Tegra. Which has, at the moment, 256 shader cores in the X1. The T239 has 2048 CUDA cores. And it will be a 10x increase on the Switch's current 0.4 teraflop output, apparently. So if they have that chip in there, combined with the fact that it'll be able to use DLSS, I think you're looking at something that is very, very, very... powerful and comparable to these handhelds that we're getting at the moment, which seemingly can play games that look like a PS4 or look like an Xbox One. And I think if the Switch 2 can do that, or the Switch Pro, or whatever they're going to call it, potentially with eGPU support, and there's like a dock that can kind of boost it, or maybe that comes in the future as like an additional accessory. I think you're looking at a machine that's pretty powerful, and I'd be very excited about that. I'd love the Nintendo to be at that like cutting, bleeding edge like they were back in the N64 days and the SNES days, where they're putting FX chips into the cartridges so they can get 3D out of a 16-bit console, and they're putting it was silicon graphics chips into the N64 originally known as the Ultra 64. And becoming like the first people to put analog sticks onto consoles, the first 3D console. I think if they can be back on that cutting edge, that bleeding edge, while also being a really accessible console with the franchises and the games that you love, and your whole catalog comes over with you from the Switch. You've got Switch Online. You can emulate all of those old games. They're on to like an absolute winner, like best-selling console of all time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with you massively, and I feel like when I think about like how I would want that system to be sort of like launched, and how I would, or how I think that you could sort of show off that kind of power, or you go, look, here's the new Switch. If you've been waiting for the new Switch, here it is. It's more powerful. It does all this, blah blah blah. And I think 2 games to launch it with. You go Metroid Prime 4, which is Nintendo's sort of like closest
adult
to
game,
realistic,
right?
Closest to the adult game. It's sort of like also Western developed game, one of their only Western developed games. And I feel like Western developers are more focused on performance and power and things like that, whereas Japanese games maybe aren't so much.
I don't know about that. Like I feel like you could get something. You could be like, let's get Final Fantasy VII remastered on there, and have like a handheld version of that. I could see them doing something like that and teaming up with Square to bring that over. I think that would be a phenomenal win for them.
I think so. I think you go Metroid Prime 4. One is just like, here's a big launch game. People have been waiting for it. People have been talking about it. But also you update Tears of the Kingdom, and you go, here's like a 60 FPS patch, just to show a very clear difference of, here's the Switch running it in 30 FPS, here's the Switch 2 running it in possibly 4K on the TV, maybe just like 1080p or whatever, but here it is running at 60 FPS, it's locked. It's got anti-aliasing, just like a HD, not remaster, because I don't think they'll sell the same game, but like on the year anniversary of the Nintendo of Tears of the Kingdom coming out, you go, here's the new system, and here's an 1-year anniversary patch to show you the power of the new system.
What I would love to see it where it automatically does it for every game, and that it can use DLSS on like a low level, on like an API level. So if you want to have like a boost mode like the PS4 Pro added, we can get those unlocked frame rates up to 60 FPS, and we can get resolutions up to 1080 or up to 1440 or up to 4K, whatever they're going to target. I'd love to see that. I think it'd be so cool.
The only reason I don't know if that is something Nintendo would do, or that's something that maybe wouldn't be in the system, is that some of these games, when emulated, can look quite nice, but some of them, I think, are still quite rocky. And I feel like if you could just put that game on a more powerful hardware, and suddenly you get this like incredibly perfect game without, the games that do run really well, like Breath of the Wild, if you were going to put that if you put that into a Wii U emulator and you whack it up to the best it can, you still need some mods to like fix some of the textures and blah 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 blah. I think that's the sort of stuff that
Yeah, but I think that's where
needs
Nvidia's
some work.
tech can come in. Like
Yeah,
DLSS I mean, they've in DLSS 3, it's got frame generation where it can slot in frames in between that it's completely made up to get a higher frame rate than the game's actually outputting, which
very
is
impressive. Is it not a bit uncanny
insane
valley?
technology.
Is it not a bit weird? Like when you have the gaming mode on your TV, is it not a bit odd, or does it work?
I don't have a GPU capable of DLSS 3, but apparently, according to what I've seen, it feels natural. Your eye can't discern that there are some artifacts on those frames because it's running at 120 frames per second, and your eye can't figure it out.
Yeah.
It just feels smoother.
Yeah. So one last point on this, and maybe the final point of the show. Considering the success of the Switch, and let's just say hypothetically this Sharp thing is true, and they are making LCDs, do you think it's pretty safe to say that Nintendo are going to continue this hybrid style system they sort of start trying to do with the Wii U, perfected nearly with the Switch? And do you think they're going to keep pushing that forward? Do you think they're going to be, especially with this other handheld market that's growing in the PC market, do you think Nintendo would be stupid to drop that and try and do like a purely home console system?
I really do.
Or try and split them again. You know?
Yeah, there's no point splitting them. I think the Switch continues. The current Switch goes away. The Switch OLED becomes the cheaper model. We get this new Switch in place, which becomes the like premium model. Like this is the new hotness. And maybe the Switch Lite gets a bit of a refresh, a bit of an update. Maybe they shove an OLED in that thing at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think the Switch continues, and I think the Switch branding just stays as is. I could easily see a Switch Pro. I don't think they go with a number 2. I think it just becomes the Switch and it just continues on. I don't think there's going to be any games that don't run on the current Switch. Are you really going to leave a player base of 125 million behind?
Yeah.
I don't think you do. PlayStation didn't when they went from PS4 to PS5. Xbox didn't when they went from the Xbox One to the Series X. I mean, that's obviously a completely different ball game. But the PS4 is, I think, the 8th best-selling console. Why would you leave behind that huge install base when you want to try and sell as much software as possible?
Yeah, and that's clearly done very well for them with Ragnarok's huge sales. It's clearly done very well for them with how Horizon has sold. You know, a lot of these games that, and you know, conversely, things like Ratchet and Clank maybe didn't sell as well because it was on a system no one could get. Blah 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 blah. And I feel like Nintendo do have a history of releasing a system and then it being tough to find. We had that with the Switch. We had that with the Wii. Didn't have that with the Wii U, weirdly enough. I think that you want to kind of you want to make sure that your games that are already big sellers are still selling well. And I feel like the if you aren't that interested in the power, you can just play it on your Switch now in 30 FPS. But if you're the kind of person like me who's like, I would pay for more power, I wouldn't mind doing that. And then like I know that eventually they're going to drop the old system anyway.
Yeah. Like in 2 years, 3 years time, they get rid of the old system, and it's like this game only runs on this console from this point onwards. And I think that's fine because that precedent's been set in like mobile phones. You know, at some point, your phone can't upgrade to the latest version of Android or the latest version of iOS, and you go, oh, okay, I guess it's time to buy a new one. I could easily see that happen with the Switch. Like it gets software update 10, and that's like the end of the life for that version of the Switch, and then you've got to upgrade to a new one. Some games will be continue to play. You could download like smaller indie titles from the eShop. Maybe you can play some Nintendo Switch titles from third parties or first parties. But at some point they will cut it off. You can't keep supporting a console that was released in 2017 on technology that was already 2 years old at that point. Because it's running the same chip that's in the Nvidia Shield. Yeah.
Do you know when they still supported the 3DS? Switch came out and they still had like a few games coming out for the 3DS because that had such a huge, you know, we still had like a Mario RPG game. We had
Luigi's Mansion 3, 2 came out in it, right?
Yeah, 2, sorry, and Metroid Samus Returns, right? These games that came out with the Switch while the Switch was already out because that was a big user base they didn't want to quite give up yet. So that's the future of the Switch, and I'm always very excited to talk about what's coming, but you know, obviously we're going to have to wait until 2024 to find out any further about this. But also huge big win for me is that we never have to talk about a Switch Pro rumor again until next year. We have an entire year of smooth fucking
Are you joking? Like, we're going to be getting so many rumors as we approach release. We're going to get rumors that dev kits are in hand. We're going to get rumors that it supports DLS3 or it doesn't. We're going to get rumors that it's backwards compatible or it's not. We're going to get rumors of what game's going to come with it. If it's going to support the current Joy-Cons. If it's going to have Hall effect sensors. There's going to be so many rumors related to this console as it comes closer and closer and closer. Don't you remember the NX? It was the same deal.
Not on this show. Not while I'm still fucking breathing. All right. I've made my point. And on that happy note, Steve, why don't you tell the folks where they can find us?
Yes, before we deblob off out of here, find us over at flipscreen.games. That's our website. You can find us everywhere we're on the web. Of course, you can find us over on Discord. Follow the link on our website. Come and hang out with us there. Make sure you drop Max a message so he gets inundated with notifications. It's always a good time. And you can find us over on Patreon, patreon.com/flipscreengames. That's the best way to support us. It really, really helps us out. It helps us keep the mics on and helps us, just buy new games to talk about, things like that. Because, it's an expensive hobby doing podcasting.
It is.
But yeah, we really appreciate everyone's support. There's nowhere else, is there, Max? Questions at flipscreen.games, I guess. That's the only other place.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. Just message us directly. Get in touch. Who knows?
Message Max directly and tell him that you really like what flavour of Monster Munch you really like.
Oh, yeah. Vanilla.
For me, it's
the vanilla flavour.
I like the flaming hot ones. Max.
I'm a big flaming hot guy. Yeah. I'm a roast beef guy, actually. I love the roast beef.
They're the worst.
Oh,
I'd take pickled onions. Pickled onion over them only day.
We've had a lovely day, Steve. Let's not argue. Let's not ruin it.
Yeah, because we've got one more podcast to record.
We do have one more podcast to record. What we don't want is if you go and listen to this week's Steam Deck podcast and you notice there's like a frosty dynamic between us, it's because this argument continued and things got a bit feisty. But yeah,
Quavers are better anyway. We all know it, so that's fine.
Wow. Okay. Thanks everyone for watching. And for the show, I've been Max. He's been Steve, and we'll see you. Hopefully not Steve next week. Bye. Can't believe you'd say Quavers.
Quavers are so good. Have fun with Tears of the Kingdom, everyone. Bye.